What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel, and consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to get more of this series and more of my MLB series that I have on the show 23 with the Baltimore Orioles. But we are here in the off season of the Montana State Grizzlies, going through the whole process of the off season. First, I want to take y'all kind of through our schedule that we ran through this season. We finished at 7-5 and ended with an Armed Forces Bowl victory over FAU. These first 4 games that we played, I believe I was playing on varsity, and as you can see from this Wyoming game, I felt like it was a little bit too easy, so I upped it into All-American difficulty for this Wisconsin game, and that is what we have been playing on for the entire rest of this series. But we ended with a 42-31 loss against number 9 Wisconsin, which is honestly a little bit better than I thought. And then out through the season, we were somewhat inconsistent. We had a few winning streaks. We ended up winning against Utah State and Air Force and BYU, all 3. But as you see in the right upper corner, our combined opponent record was 67-73. So not a very strong strength of schedule that we had this first season. I'm not sure if it's going to upgrade anymore. But I do like having, a warm-up game against an FCS opponent. And I do like playing at least 1 or 2 ranked opponents going for the year. So that's what we'll try and set up going into our next season. And real quick, before we get into it, I do want to go and look at our coach skill trees, because our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator both have a skill upgrade that they can use. So defensive coordinator, Zabion Carter, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. These are our subscribers. Hopefully they don't move on to other teams once we get into the offseason. I don't think that our offense was good enough for that to happen just yet. But let me know what you guys would like to see. D Hunter, what would you like to get an upgrade? We can either go with our quarterbacks, get a throw power and accuracy, better catching, better running back moves, or better carrying, better injury and stamina. And defensive coordinator, we can either go with injury and stamina, defensive line moves, block shedding, corners and safeties get better coverage, and then better zone out of our linebackers and secondary. I am kind of leaning towards the man coverage and press, because I do like running a lot of man coverage, and we are losing both of our top 2 corners because they are seniors. But you guys let me know what you would like to see with those upgrades. And then I do want to take y'all quickly through our season stats before we get into our actual off-season things. I went ahead and wrote down all of our career stats for our seniors so that, as we go through this series, we can see our actual leaderboards of who has the most career rushing yards on the team, who has the most career receiving yards, most tackles, sacks, things like that. So we ran a 2-quarterback system this season between Nick McConnell and Andre Lilly. Nick McConnell's a redshirt sophomore and Lilly's a redshirt freshman. So I didn't really feel like one of them kind of excelled more than the other. Andre Lilly was a little bit better of a runner than a passer, but both of them threw 9 and 10 interceptions on 128 and 221 attempts. So no one really stood out, but Nick McConnell was a little bit of our better passing quarterback. He had 1,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Both quarterbacks completed 2/3 of their passes. And then Nick McConnell was sacked 21 times. I'd attribute that to Lilly just being a little bit more elusive. He has a little bit more speed and ability to get outside of the pocket. In our running game, Jared Bryant, he surpassed 1,000 yards with a 7-yard per carry average and 5 touchdowns. We started the season with giving Wes Keith the starting nod, but he just wasn't quite as efficient, and I believe Bryant took over after a couple weeks after he had a very good game running the ball. But 5 touchdowns from Bryant. Andre Lilly actually had 7. And if we look at these leading stats, Adrian Jackson, the fullback, we do love giving the fullback the ball whenever we can, whenever it calls for it. So he had 6 touchdowns, and as did Wes Keith. McConnell and Bryant both had 5. And then our wide receivers, which we also do like getting the ball to try and add another facet, another option to this running game, they got a pretty decent amount of carries. LaShawn Henderson, 25 carries for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Alan Bradford, a senior, got 7 for 47 and 2 touchdowns. LaShawn Henderson was definitely our most productive ball carrier besides Jared Bryant. And then when he had a long of 74, which I believe was in the last game against FAU, unless that was a 73 and he just had a 74-yarder earlier in the season. I can't really recall. But Andre Lilly actually had a 70-yarder of his own. So we had some chances where we were explosive during the season. Receiving-wise, LaShawn Henderson led us in receiving yards by a large margin, almost 120 yards. 50 receptions, 577 with 5 touchdowns. Jarrett Harden, the tight end, was distant second place, 40 for 458 and a touchdown. And then Ernie Rushing, the senior, had 35 for 467 and a touchdown. LaShawn Henderson and Alan Bradford were our 2 most important receivers in the red zone. And I do want to touch on one guy that I'm interested in seeing next season. That is Garen Patrick. He's only a redshirt freshman. He had 5 for 78, so he had some big explosive plays, and he's a much better receiving tight end than Jarrett Harden. So we saw how involved Jarrett Harden was this season, and I'm looking to see what Garen Patrick gives us going into next year. Our offensive line was a big problem for us this season. We didn't get many pancakes. We allowed a lot of sacks, especially with Nick McConnell at quarterback, but Trey Terry had 7 given up. Alex Thibodeau, a senior, had 6, and we have some turnover coming through into the next season with Thibodeau and Temple both leaving. So our entire left side of our offensive line will be new. Hopefully we get some new recruits in to fill that spot, as I don't think that we really want to roll with Devin Chapman, who is a 62 overall, replacing Thibodeau. Defensively, Jarvis Murray, one of our standout players on defense, free safety. He had 81 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, no sacks, and an interception. But just going through some of these leaders, Alfred Kent was also another playmaker for us, Bobby Doucette. And you see most of these guys aren't leaving. I think along the defensive line is really where we're losing some depth with Lewis Mitchell, Bradley Hamby, and Dan Rooney at corners. We also have Elliott Hardy moving on from defensive ends. So we're losing like 2 defensive ends are both of our starting corners. So those are going to be needs that we need to address. And hopefully we get some guys coming in this recruiting class that can fill those holes. But tackles for loss, Rudy Norwood had an amazing 23 on the season. And Alfred Kent, the outside linebacker who can play on the line or off the ball, is definitely someone I'm looking forward to making a jump next year. Lewis Mitchell behind him with 16, DeLuca with 13, and Elliott Hardy, another senior, with 11. Our sack leaders, Rudy Norwood had 9, Elliott Hardy with 7, Lewis Mitchell with 6. So we have 13 sacks right there that will need to be made up by some of these guys who are replacing them. And Marcel Madsen, he might jump into being our other starting defensive end, or he might put some weight on in the offseason to make this move inside to defensive tackle to help out Lance Burley and King Simpson. Kicking wise, we did not have a great kicking game, or at least I didn't trust him to make anything over 40 yards. Kevin Thorne, he was 13 for 14, which was good, but I kind of based that more on the fact that we didn't attempt any kicks further than 40 very much. He was perfect on extra points, which I would hope that a kicker would be extra. And you see his only miss was from 40 to 49. So I'm not necessarily looking for a kicker this season. I think we can roll with Kevin Thorne for next season. And our punting game was pretty much about the same. Kelly Reese was serviceable, 41.3 average. If anyone wants to tell me if that is good or not, I don't know exactly what is a good average for a punter. I just know that you always want to pin him inside the 20, but he only had 3 inside the 20 out of 26 attempts. So hopefully next year he can improve on that, but he is actually one of our better players by overall rating. And then kick returners, Jared Bryant I don't know if you can see the little statue by his name, but he did win Returner of the Year. He had 1,500 yards and only one touchdown, but that was for 101. I believe that was in our first game that he actually returned that kickoff for a touchdown. That was also a point where I was thinking, okay, maybe we should up this difficulty a bit. And the Norris Fellows, he'll be returning 28 punt returns, 341 yards, 12.1 per carry. I didn't really give anyone else another chance, but we'll see how that goes into next season if we want to give someone else a chance to return kicks, as I think Norris Fellows might be starting as one of our cornerbacks. And now that we are past the bowl season, I do want to run through some of these bowl results. I won't be going too in depth. I didn't get too much feedback about what games you guys wanted to see or who y'all wanted to see lose, but I will run through some of these teams that are in the Mountain West Conference with us. BYU absolutely got demolished by USC in the New Mexico Bowl. Air Force lost to Toledo. Are we the only? Okay, Boise State beat ECU, so we're not the only Mountain West Conference team to win a bowl game. And Fresno State beat UCLA 45-3. Holy crap. Colorado State lost to UTEP. Going through some of these others, I think that's might be the last of our. There's our bowl game, 45-60. I'm not going to go all into the depth of the stats and everything, but if you guys want to see all that, you can run through the last episode, at least jumping to the end, seeing kind of what happened there. But going down, Sun Bowl, Chick-fil-A Bowl, Texas A&M. If there's one of these games that you guys want to see next year, I think we might try and open the season with FAU, or at least play them early in the season, maybe get a matchup of that. But we see Ohio State is the national champions over number 4 ranked Oregon. I wonder if they got that number 4 ranking after they lost, but Ohio State is your national champions. And then I also want to run through the Heisman winner. Braxton Miller is your winner. Johnny Manziel behind him. DeAnthony Thomas, McCarron, and Mariota round out the top 5. And Braxton Miller will have a chance next year unless he declares for the draft. And then our All-Americans for the season. I don't know if we had any guys in the All-NCAA first team. Jared Bryant actually is the returner for the first team. Second team, no one. Freshman, no one again. We may have some freshman All-Americans next year because we do have a lot of freshmen incoming and some that will probably start. And there's a lot of Boise State and Fresno State in this first team All-Mountain West. But Alfred Kent makes it at left outside linebacker. Jarvis Murray makes it at free safety. And Jared Bryant makes it at returner. Surprised that Jared Bryant didn't make it at running back. But second team, Rudy Norwood makes it at defensive end. I'm somewhat surprised he didn't make it for the first team. Burley on second team D tackle. Bobby Doucette with second team middle linebacker. And Kevin Thorne is your second team All Mountain West Conference kicker. And now we get into the award winners. Maxwell goes to Braxton Miller. Walter Camp also goes to Braxton Miller. The Bednarik, E.J. Gaines. Nagurski goes to Ryan Russell. O'Brien, A.J. McCarron. The Walker to DeAnthony Thomas. Bolitnikoff goes to Kenny Bell. Arthur Lynch gets your Mackey Award. And Jake Matthews gets the Outland. Remington goes to Carrington Armstrong. Russell gets the Lombardi. David Santos gets your best linebacker. E.J. Gaines again gets a Thorpe. Michael Honeycutt gets your Grozer. And Matt Wild gets your guy, with Jared Bryant winning best returner. I feel like every time I play this game, I always have someone as the best returner. It's always the easiest to get. You know, the next closest was 400 yards less, but he did have a touchdown as well. And here's your top 25 to end the season. Ohio State, obviously number 1 after winning the BCS championship. And, you know, maybe we can make it into this top 25 next year. I highly doubt it, but that is the goal, to get in there next year. If not next year, I'm hoping to maybe be a preseason top 25, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. And with that, we can finally advance into the actual offseason. And we have a few recruiting battles to deal with. Kenny Neal at tight end, Daniel Richard left guard. Those are probably my top 2 targets going into the offseason recruiting. And then some of these other guys I would very much like to add for depth if we can. So we're here in the first week of the offseason looking at the coach carousel. We'll look to see if any of our guys kind of move on to the next week or move on to a new team, whether that's an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. I don't expect it to happen, but we'll just sim through all of these. Oh, our head coach. I'm actually a candidate, but I'm probably not going to be moving on to another team. I'd like to see what this team builder has to offer for us. And luckily we didn't have our coordinators change any teams, so I will just let you guys see all of these new coaches and old coaches. I'm not going to run through all of these. It's just too much. But a lot of teams just pretty much changed their whole coaching philosophy. They changed head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. So I saw that I think Ohio State, whenever I was going through the coaching carousel, they changed, all of them. Or they kept their head coach, but changed their DC and OC. So might have some new teams at the top of the top 25 going into next season and seasons after that. So maybe that'll give us a little bit of a chance to get into that very elusive club. And that takes us into our players leaving. So we have a few seniors making some changes. Alan Bradford rushing, defensive end Elliott Hardy, offensive lineman Thibodeau and Temple, corners Hamby and Rooney, Wes Keith at running back, which he didn't get too much playing time anyway. Defensive end Lewis Mitchell, tight end Jarrett Harden, and wide receiver BJ Reddick. So we had some contributors that are moving on, mainly at the wide receiver and defensive line and cornerback position. But I feel like we've gotten some good prospects in to help to fill that need. And then we also have a lot of depth at some of those positions that can take over and leave not as big of a gap at that spot. And I always export my draft class to Madden 25. I do have Madden 25, so I don't know if you guys would like to see maybe a sim series on that to see kind of how some of these players, whenever we do get into players actually being drafted, if you guys want to see how their kind of NFL career plays out, let me know. And here's a part I always look forward to in the season. Do we have any transfer requests? No. That's unfortunate, but, you know, very rarely do I get transfer requests. But going into the draft results, obviously we don't have anyone. But if some of you guys want to see some of these teams that actually do, Alabama always has a lot of players that are drafted. Arizona has one. Arizona State. I don't want to really go through all of these, but I'll go through some of our Mountain West Conference teams. So Boise State has 2 going in the 6th and the 7th. Colorado State doesn't have any. Fresno State only has Derek Carr going in the 3rd round. Hawaii has no one. Nevada has no one. San Diego State, Nate Burhey. I'm not sure how you say that, but he goes in the 6th. San Jose State has Noel Grigsby going in the 5th. Utah, Trevor Riley, linebacker, goes in the 3rd. Utah State has no one. And Wyoming has no one. So not too many players from the Mountain West Conference getting drafted, but I'm hoping we can change that in the next couple years as we start to move up these rankings. And that takes us into recruiting in the offseason. So I have a couple guys that we're looking at putting probably most of our points into. That would be Chuck Kennedy, Kenny Neal, Daniel Richard. Elvis Cook, he's someone that I looked at later in the season, added him to our board as, he could be someone that we redshirt. Maybe he takes over. He's got a good blend of speed and throw power. But yeah, some of these other guys I'm not super worried about, and we are in the lead, maybe not by a large margin, but now it's time to put in some of these points. First things first, I do want to offer a scholarship to Elvis Cook. I think he's the only one that we don't have a scholarship for. We have no scholarships given to Russell Atkinson or Dave Watson. These are another two guys that I added later in the season, but 60 overalls, I'm not too terribly interested in dumping a lot of points into them. So first up, Chuck Kennedy. I feel like he is someone that I want to give a lot of points to. So we'll start off, we'll give him like 3,000 points. That sounds good enough to me, at least to get it started, kind of see where we stand for everyone else. And then Kenny Neal, probably kind of the same deal. We're up 1,100 on Air Force. His needs are, he wants to stay close to home, athletic facilities, TV exposure, which is probably about the same for Air Force. We're a little bit in the lead, so we'll also give him, like 2,000. And then Daniel Richard, he's someone that we had to actually unlock, so I'm a little worried that he's going to side with Washington, but we did get a little increase from our Week 15 visit, I think. So I want to start him off with like 2,000. And then some of these other guys, we'll give Elvis Cook like, I don't know, 600. Sounds about right. I mean, we didn't really recruit him, but neither did everyone else. Actually, let's bump him up like 750. Andre Smith, a linebacker. I don't think we need to go too heavy on him. We're fairly deep at linebacker, but I think he's someone we could give like 500 points to, or well, we'll go 400. I feel like that might be enough. We're already up by 1,800, and he's pretty much locked into us. So unless Boise just throws the entire kitchen sink at him, I think we'll hopefully get him. Lionel Schultz, he's another one that I want to put a lot of stuff into. Looking at his scouting, a very good run blocker, not really a good pass blocker, but 70 strength is probably one of the higher ends. Well, actually, he's actually one of the lower of the linemen that we have, but with his good run blocking and pass blocking, I would still like to add him to the team. But we'll stick with him at 400. Now, John Torres is someone who is interesting because he projects to be a defensive end, but we did already get a few defensive end recruits, so I'm not thinking that he is going to be a very large need for us unless he ends up being, a good run blocker and he can make that move into being in the offensive line. So we might give him a few points, maybe a couple hundred, but I don't think that he's going to be very high on our board. All right, so I think this is where our recruiting points are going to stay at. Chuck Kennedy, we're giving him 3,000. We're ahead by Texas by almost 1,000, and they haven't even offered him a scholarship. So I'm hoping that that will be enough to land him. He's from Minnesota. He doesn't really want to stay close to home, but here's hoping that that is enough points for him. Tight end Kenny Neal, we're sitting at 2,000 because we're kind of in the lead. He's not super important because we still do have Garen Patrick coming up this season, but I would like to have that other tight end who can, kind of do it all. He's a good run blocker. He's a good catcher. He's just a little bit slow, but I think he would be a big improvement to our team. And Daniel Richard, the offensive lineman, he's going to get the most points at 3,500. We did unlock him earlier in the season, and we're not too far in the lead against two Washington teams. And looking at his bonus points, one of his deal breakers is he wants to be close to home, which is in Washington. So I'm hoping that 3,500 points is enough to outweigh Washington and Washington State, but it's going to be a close one. Quarterback Elvis Cook, we didn't really recruit him. He's not an absolute need. Yeah, he has 77 throw power, 70 accuracy, but that's not any better than what Nick McConnell or Andre Lilly are bringing to the table. Outside linebacker Andre Smith, we gave him 200, hoping that Boise State isn't going to recruit him very much. We're pretty much in the lead at 97%, so I don't think we need to add many points to him. Lionel Schultz, again, I hope 450 is enough to outweigh what Oregon is putting into him. He's from California, so Oregon, Montana, they're similar distances, right? John Torres, the athlete that is most likely a defensive end. I'm not putting any points into him. I felt like it was better put into Daniel Richard just because of the fact that we have 2 defensive ends already committed, and I mean, we're up by almost 1,000 on Vandy, so he could commit with no points put into him. Who knows? And then Dwayne Thompson and Pat Dawson, they're kind of in similar situations. I only put 250 and 300 into them respectively because, you know, we're in the lead, or at least close to the lead. So maybe that would be enough to actually get them committed. And then Bobby Harwell, I put 250 into him. We're fairly in the lead unless Washington State wants to just cut underneath us. But I would be interested in getting him because he's 5'10", 196, but has a lot of ratings that you might see from a linebacker. He has good power moves and finesse moves, not very good at block shedding, but decent speed, good tackle, hit power, good man coverages. So I'd be interested in seeing what position he would actually play. And he has some elusiveness and stuff. He could play on offense or defense. I mean, he is an athlete after all. And then these other guys, Larry McTaggart, Russell Atkinson, and Dave Watson, I just don't think that 60 overall is something that we need to pursue very heavily. And I don't know about you, but this is the most nerve-wracking spot of the series so far to date. You know, trying to get some of these very good recruits that we can try and bring in and help this team excel and advance into the upper echelon of the Mountain West Conference, and, you know, into maybe going into like the Pac-10 if we start to do very, very good with, you know, our recruiting, if how we play. I would like to get that conference prestige and play a little bit tougher opponents without having to go out of conference games. And we do get a lot of recruits, and unfortunately Chuck Kennedy, looks like LSU jumped us and Texas to take him. But we get Kenny Neal, the tight end, Daniel Richard, the guard, Lionel Schultz, the guard, Andre Smith, the linebacker. We get Torres after not recruiting him at all, and Dwayne Thompson and Dave Watson were committed. So we got some guys we wanted. We got some guys that we didn't want, and we didn't get some guys that I really wanted, especially Chuck Kennedy. I felt like, you know, having that for sure number 1 wide receiver would have helped us out a great deal, but maybe he saw what our offense did last year. We weren't really a passing team, and he was like, no, I want to go somewhere that actually throws the ball. It looks like Elvis Cook didn't go anywhere. Maybe I'll write his name down and see if, you know, later seasons, if he actually pops up as a JUCO guy. I've always wondered that in NCAA Football 14, if that actually happened. But, yep, Chuck Kennedy. We gave him 3,000 points. It looked like we would have needed like 3,500 to actually pull him off, as LSU jumped both us and Texas. But we do get Kenny Neal, number 10 tight end. He's probably going to come in, maybe immediately start. We'll have to see how Garen Patrick's development is, but I think Kenny Neal is probably one of our better bets to start with. Lionel Schultz, John Torres, the defensive end, comes in. Dwayne Thompson, a tackle, who might make a switch inside. We'll have to look at some of these players and their player positions and see how all that goes. Pat Dawson commits to Wyoming. Bobby Harwell, the athlete that I was kind of hoping to get, went to Washington State. Larry McTaggart goes to Georgia State. Not a terrible draft class. We ended up bringing in 13 recruits. Some of them are JUCO guys, so they're only with us for a few years. But we have the 48th ranked recruiting class. 3 4-stars, 6 3-stars, 8 2-stars, and 1 1-star. Maybe next year we can get our first 5-star recruit, but, you know, 48th out of 126. We're in what, like the top 40-ish%. I'm okay with that for our first recruiting class in this series. Oh, it looks like we brought in 18 recruits. Interesting. I thought I counted 13, so I guess I was incorrect. But 18 recruits after going 8-5, the season is looking up. And that takes us into position changes. I might do these off camera and let you all know kind of how it goes. And Kenny Neal is already our 3rd ranked player, not accounting for our trainings that we'll have to see how some of our players progress. But Garen Patrick's at 59, so he's not going to surpass Kenny Neal. I might be okay starting Garen Patrick, letting Kenny Neal actually be our 2nd string tight end. I mean, I'm very interested in seeing what Garen Patrick can bring us. He's a bit faster. His catching is not nowhere as good as Kenny Neal's. Not good route running. How's his blocking? And he doesn't have as good of a blocking. So let me know whether y'all would like to see Kenny Neal or Garen Patrick start. I'd like to see both of them play. So maybe during the season we just go a little bit more 2 tight end sets. With that 81 speed, I hate to see him not get onto the field at all. Maybe if his speed goes up enough, maybe we switch him to wide receiver. How would y'all guys feel about that? Because 59 overall, I wonder what kind of wide receiver rating he would be right now. He'd be a 62, and that would make him a little bit lower down on the depth chart, but we do have some upperclassmen. He's a sophomore, so he would at least get a chance to start maybe in a year or two, as we'll have a few guys leaving and a lot of seniors will be coming out, not this coming year, but the next year. But I will do all of these position changes and show you guys some of my decisions and let y'all know why I made those decisions. Alright, I think I figured out all of the position changes. At quarterback, one of the guys that we have walk on, Mac McDonald, he is probably just not going to make the team. 54 overall, I don't see him ever really playing. Running backs, we also had Dave Watson commit, but I mean, he might not make the team. 60 overall, if we have an open roster spot, he'll stay. I don't think that, I mean, 77 acceleration, that is absolutely terrible, and I don't think he's not a very good wide receiver either, so we'll see if we need to make some cuts. At wide receiver, not much changes here. We had 3 guys come and walk on, but probably going to cut Ryan Parsons. I've already gone through. None of them are really good as cornerbacks, and they just don't bring anything else to the team. I'm okay with having these 6 receivers, and we'll have to recruit wide receiver pretty heavily coming into next season. Kenny Neal, I'm still debating on whether letting him start, but you guys let me know in the comments what you think I should do. Either start, Garen Patrick because he's earned it after last season, or run multiple tight end sets with Kenny Neal as our starter. And then on the offensive line, we have a lot of changes. Daniel Richard, he was the guard that came in. We move him to left tackle because he's 174 overall. And then looking at his stats, he has 82 pass blocking, which is automatically the best on the team, and 77 run blocking. And I want to get him on the field after having to put all those points in to beat out Washington. So he's a little bit undersized, 6'3", 266. So I may up his weight just up to like 270, 273 or something like that. I don't mind giving some of these guys that come in a little bit higher of a weight, even when they come in as like undersized offensive linemen, because getting into collegiate strength program will hopefully do that to an average player. A left guard, Lionel Schultz, he came as a right guard, but he will switch to the left side. And Devin Chapman, after we go through the trainings, he may actually outclass Lionel Schultz, but we'll have to see how all of that works out. He does have better awareness than Schultz, and I do believe that the blocking ratings are similar. So Chapman has better pass blocking, a little bit less run blocking, but I'm okay letting Devin Chapman be the higher ranked. But after you see some of the trainings, you guys let me know what you think I should do there. At center, it's still going to be Andrew Morris because he still has to go through the trainings to get improved. And Peter Siegel, he'll be the backup. At right guard, John Torres came in as an athlete and originally said he was a defensive end, and he had good block shedding, finesse move like that. But if you move over here to his blocking ratings, he has 75 pass blocking and 80 run blocking and 77 impact block with fairly high strength, 70 strength. So he will stay there at right guard, but he's not going to start this year because I took our right tackle, Trey Terry. He's going to slide inside to right guard. He did give up a lot of sacks last season. He gave up 7 sacks. So hopefully this move to right guard will leave him a little bit less exposed. He's not as agile and athletic as some of the other guys we have at right tackle. For instance, the guy who will be starting, Jim McKeon, 6'7", 290. He's a junior. He has good size for the position, 75 strength, a little bit less than what Terry's is. And he comes in with similar ratings blocking as well, 76 pass blocking, 74 run blocking. So that will be our offensive line. And then behind them, we have the freshman Dwayne Thompson at 62 overall. And after this season, Jim McKean's a senior. And then we will have Terry as a senior. After this season, we'll have a fairly young, fairly good offensive line. And I'm excited for that for the next couple years. On the defensive side of the ball, Lawrence Johnson will probably start at defensive end. I don't feel like either of these guys will overtake him ratings wise. Austin Horner did move from outside linebacker to left end just to give a little bit of depth at the position. He's got 76 speed, which is a little bit lower than I would like for linebackers. So we'll also up his weight a little bit to imitate the fact that he is preparing for this switch to the defensive line. Maybe put him at like 220, 225, 6'2", 225 to be a sophomore defensive end. Rudy Norwood stays at defensive end, and then we also have 2 more linebackers sliding down to defensive end with their speed not being up to par of what I would like a linebacker. So Lyndon Livingston, he'll get a weight increase, as will Chris Bryant, just to, anticipating this switch in positions. Their ratings aren't great, but they're okay and probably some of the better that we had to switch linebackers down to defensive line. So they're just going to be depth. They won't get very much playing time. And then defensive tackle, we also have some more changes. Marcel Madsen moves from defensive end into defensive tackle. He's a senior, and I just want to give him a little bit more playing time. So he and Burley will most likely be our starters. And I wanted to have Lawrence Johnson start, seeing as we only have 2 years of him eligibility. And then we also moved Charles Wade down inside the defensive tackle because his speed is low and his strength is okay. But 6'5", 245, we are going to increase his weight as well. And he has good power move and good block shedding, not as good finesse moves. So he will be one of our defensive tackles going forward. And another defensive end making his switch down inside, Desmond Gutierrez. Low speed, extremely high strength. I'm thinking about redshirting him just so we can get an extra year of that strength and also give him some time to put on some size at that position. But switching them down so they can actually get their ratings going up for this next training thing. Jared Moss, he will stay at outside backer. We haven't had many changes here. Just Walter Smith moved over to left outside for depth reasons. And Alfred Kent moves inside to middle linebacker for his senior season at 6', 219. I feel like he has good size for the position, and Bobby Doucette still has another couple years, so he'll get some development, and he'll also have some playing time at middle linebacker in some of our nickel formations. I think it'll most likely be Kent and Doucette, seeing as how Jared Moss doesn't have great coverage ratings, 68 and 70, but Doucette should get an upgrade after we go through the trainings. DeLuca will stay at right outside linebacker for his senior season, and then we have Andre Smith, the freshman behind him out of Montana. 81 speed, 78 acceleration, 43 awareness, so he's serviceable, but he has decent ratings, 68 man coverage and 69 zone, much better than DeLuca's. So we'll see how he progresses through with his career. And at corner, the JUCO commit Gary Malone right now is a top 5 depth chart, but I did move Norris Fellows down from his strong safety spot down to be a corner. So he and Ramirez will most likely be the starters, or maybe I'll let Norris Fellows continue being his slot corner. And Nathan Goodwin has played extremely well, so I feel like he has earned a starting spot, or at least earned a spot to be playing corner a lot. So Gary Malone, good size, lower speed, but he will probably end up being our 3rd or 4th corner overall ratings wise. But y'all let me know what you think I should do with Nathan Goodwin. We did have that interception in our bowl game, so that alone is making me want to start him, because he can be a difference maker if we need him to be. Then this Nathan Estes guy, just a 2-star corner, pretty sure he walked on. And then at free safety, Stanford Edwards, he will back up Jarvis Murray since this is his senior year, give him a year of development. At 6'5", 203, he has amazing size and range, and his coverage skills do need a lot of work. But I'm thinking about moving DeMarcus Neal into our free safety position, as Fred Rowland is there right now. He has a little bit lower speed, 86, whereas Neal is at 87 with 91 acceleration. So I will actually do that right now. He does drop down a little bit in his ratings, but I'm okay with dealing with that for next year. And kickers, punters, nothing changes there. And we have our training results. So looking at these, we will see who improved the most. Jarvis Murray gets a +5. Nick McConnell gets +6. You love to see that. Alfred Kent also gets a +6. And Marcel Madsen gets a +6, switching positions inside. So Nick McConnell's up at a 79, gets a little bit of a speed increase, as does Andre Lilly. Let's see what their arms look like. They both have 76 throw power. McConnell's a little bit more accurate, so they both went up by the same amount. Pretty much what I expected out of our quarterbacks. Running backs, Jared Bryant gets a +5, and so does Grant Vogel. Xavier Holly gets +4, and Thomas Richards gets +6. I'm thinking about having Xavier Holly. I redshirted him last year, but I'm thinking about having him be our returner this year, just so Jared Bryant can get as many carries as possible. Fullback, Adrian Jackson got a +3, a little bit of a speed boost. Some running abilities. How did his blocking go up? +1 to run blocking, +2 to impact blocking, so he is going to be even more dangerous this year. Wide receivers, we do get some more increases. LaShawn Henderson gets a +5 and even gets faster. Anthony Isley, I'm glad he got a speed boost because he was at 84, but Don Wood doesn't. So maybe we get Booker Ward as our slot guy and kind of let Don Wood be at the back of the depth chart. Did anybody's catching go up a lot? We got +5 from these 3 guys. Some route running, some catching traffic. So not too bad. Garen Patrick goes up to a 63 overall, gets a little bit more speed, a little bit more awareness. Does his catching go up any? Went up to 71. Route running up to a 72. How about his blocking? A little bit. So he's going up. He's still probably going to be second on the depth chart. At left tackle, Seth Peterson moves up to a 68. Still not, good enough to surpass Richard, our starting left tackle. So I'm still thinking about keeping him there. At left guard, Devin Chapman goes up to a 67, so he bypasses Schultz, who we had. I think he was a 65 overall, so it looks like Chapman is going to be the starting left guard. Andrew Morris goes up to a 73 with Jamal Lambert getting a +9. Holy crap. I think that might be the first time I've ever seen a +9 out of a player. What gave him a +9? Did his blocking ratings go up crazy? I mean, +6 to pass block, +5 to run block. Nothing too crazy, but holy crap, he did get a +6 to awareness. That's insane. A 66 overall. He might bypass Siegel next year, as Siegel's a 67. Lambert will be a 66 coming in this year. Trey Terry, moving from right tackle to right guard, goes up to 73 overall. A little bit of a speed boost. He gets strength, which he didn't really need, but I'm looking for him to have a much better season than he did last year. His pass blocking and run blocking goes up. And Jim McKeon is a 72 overall, gets a +4. A lot of awareness. That's one of the main reasons I put him at tackle, because his awareness was higher than Terry's, and he gets serviceable pass blocking and run blocking. On the defense, Austin Horner is a 67 overall. I believe our JUCO D end is 68, so he will keep that position. See what his ratings went up. Okay, not too bad. Just under 70 for all of them. I can deal with that as a backup defensive end. Well, it looks like it already added Napoleon Hurd and Austin Horner getting some weight increases. Napoleon Hurd, I think, was like 253, so he gained 10 pounds. Austin Horner, I think, was like 209, I think, to something like that. Livingston didn't get a weight increase. Chris Wyatt didn't. But Rudy Norwood moves up to a 76 overall, gets a little bit more speed, a little bit more awareness. He gets even more block shedding, finesse, and power moves, so he is going to be a real problem off the edge. Defensive tackle Marcel Madsen moves up to a 74, so good increase for him. Switching positions inside to D tackle will also up his weight, maybe put him up to a like 286, 290. At 6'3", I feel like that's a decent weight for a defensive tackle. Lance Burley moved up to a 73. Desmond Gutierrez, with his 93 strength going up to a 95, moves ahead of King Simpson. Simpson still has a little bit more speed and awareness, but making that switch by Gutierrez, that'll do that in this game. Maybe I'll up his awareness next season or this season. Let me know if y'all think I should up his awareness, because moving from defensive end to defensive tackle shouldn't drop your rating down from like 60 down to 40. So let me know if you think I should move his awareness as Marcel's awareness up. That's something I wouldn't be against doing, just because it makes it slightly a little bit more realistic, but also the lower awareness makes it a little bit difficult of a rebuild, a little bit more difficult of a rebuild. Marcel Madsen, 77 block shedding, 74 power moves, 67 finesse. Lance Burley, 73 across the board. I'm liking some of these increases for our defensive line. Hopefully that'll help with our run defense this past season that was absolutely terrible. Lee Harden moves up to a 68 overall and 87 speed, so I'm looking to see what they bring to the table. Very, very fast. I also think that they have a decent amount of hit power, 73. So I'm looking for them to make a difference here in maybe a couple years. Walter Schmidt moves up to a 66. Alfred Kent moves up to a 77 for his senior year. A little bit more speed, a little bit more awareness. 79 hit power, 76 block shedding, and coverages moves up to a 74 zone coverage. So I would like to see him actually get drafted this year. I don't think with a 77 overall he will, but you never know. And then Doucette with a 71 overall, 82 speed, even more awareness boost, but he'll be our starting middle linebacker, not this coming year, but the next year. whenever Alfred Kent moves on. But he'll still get some playing time this year. Outside linebacker Ray DeLuca moves up to a 77 overall. Decent speed. I wonder if his coverages improved any. I don't think. Well, 68 zone, 57 man. Not terrible, but also not great. I'm pretty sure his catching 62. So we saw he had some stone hands in that bowl game. At corner, Norris Fellows, 71 overall, goes up +5. All of our corners get a little bit of a speed boost, which is great. Nathan Goodwin looks like he is going to be third or fourth on the depth chart, with Gary Malone being a 68 overall, but I'm still looking at Goodwin getting some playing time, probably being our nickel corner, or maybe our second corner, and having Ramirez or Fellows be our nickel corner. Let's see some of these coverages they got. So Goodwin is a little bit better in coverage. He doesn't have the press. Norris Fellows is more of a press corner, so I'm thinking he will get the slot cornerback spot or the nickel back. And Kieran Ramirez and Nathan Goodwin will be our outside corners, with Dixon and Ruff kind of rounding it out with Malone in there somewhere. Free safety Jarvis Murray goes up to an 83 overall for his senior season, 91 speed, good awareness at 71. 66 block shedding, pretty good for a free safety, and 85 zone. I'd like to see him drafted. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but Randall Arrington for his senior season only moves up to an 80 with 90 speed, so he's reached the 90 threshold. His tackling, hit power, 80 hit power. He might be one of the highest on the team, but 81 play rec, 81 pursuit. He's a very good strong safety, and I'm definitely going to miss him and Jarvis Murray after this season. Our kicker, Kevin Thorne, 75 overall. Did he get any upgrade to his kick power? 78. So not a lot, but hopefully it will help him at least make over a 40-yarder. And Kelly Reese moves up to an 84 overall with 81 kick power and 84 kick accuracy. So I'm okay with that. Maybe if we go for a deep 50+ field goal or 45+, we put Kelly Reese back there to try and make that. But let me know what you guys think. I'm fairly happy we finally have some players over 80 overall. I think this will be an even better season than last year. Which brings us into preseason, and pretty much the only thing I'm going to go through this time is the redshirt players, setting up some of our depth chart, getting our schedule set up, and then I will show y'all some of the recruits that I kind of run through and who I think is going to help this team in the future. So first off, redshirting our players. We can't redshirt any quarterbacks. Running backs, I don't think we are going to redshirt anyone here. I think Grant Vogel will be our number 2 running back going into the season. At wide receiver, I'm not going to redshirt Manny Hodges. I will redshirt both of these guys. I don't think they're going to play a part. Probably not even play a part ever. But they're from California. They're on the team. Tight end Kenny Neal's not redshirted. No redshirt for Richard. Now, I'm thinking Lionel Schultz may be someone that I want to redshirt. Devin Chapman is going to get the start. That means that'll give us at least one more eligibility of Lionel Schultz. I don't think that will force him into transferring. So we'll go ahead and redshirt Schultz. I do want to redshirt Peter Siegel. He's probably definitely going to start behind Andrew Morris, so that'll just give us an extra 4 years out of him. I'm going to redshirt John Torres. He's only 6'4", 240, so we'll justify it by saying he needs to pack on a little bit of size. So 6'4", maybe 260, maybe 265 whenever he comes in as a sophomore. Maybe he could be 275, 280-ish by the time he gets to start as a redshirt sophomore. Right tackle, I do want to redshirt Dwayne Thompson just for the depth. We have Jeff Miles, who played last year, and there's not much of an increase between either of these two guys. So that means when McKeon moves on, we can have Dwayne Thompson for an extra year. Lawrence Thompson will be starting, so no red shirt. No red shirt for Norwood. And then on the defensive line, I am thinking that I do want to redshirt Desmond Gutierrez. He's only 6'3", 263, so I'm justifying it by that. And then I also do want to redshirt Charles Wade as well, so he can add a little bit more size. And I'll just cut our defensive tackle room down a little bit to give us a little bit more depth, because after this year, we're going to have 3 seniors. Well, now only 2 seniors, with Gutierrez being a redshirt junior, and then a few sophomores. At linebacker, Jared Moss is not going to be redshirted. And we have a senior, junior, and 2 sophomores. I'm thinking that I do want to redshirt Santonio Curry, just so he gets that extra year of ability. He is 6'4", 218, so if he can add on some size and become a starter for us in the future, I think that'll be his best bet. And then outside linebacker, we're going to do the same thing with Andre Smith, since we have DeLuca and O'Connor both a few years ahead of him. And looking here at the corners, I'm actually thinking that we may redshirt Gary Malone. That way we can get a full 2 years out of him. So Norris Fellows, Ramirez, and Goodwin will be our top 3 corners, and Gary Malone will have an extra year of eligibility, and hopefully it'll bring his speed up from 86 to at least like 87 or 88. Free safety, we aren't going to redshirt anyone. And then at strong safety, I do want to redshirt DeMarcus Neal, just because he's probably going to take over next year as a redshirt sophomore. And so we'll have both Stanford Edwards and DeMarcus Neal as both sophomores, so we can have them for a few years. And that rounds out our red shirts. Mostly some of these lower rated players, as you do. So let me know if you agree with some of these red shirts, if you think that I should have red shirted someone else or started someone else. Let me know in the comments below. Alright, so I think this is what our schedule is going to look like. We'll open with number 13 Wisconsin at Wisconsin. You know, a lower rated team playing against a ranked team. They kind of want that warm-up week, so we'll give them that. And then we have 2 straight home games against Washington State and Arkansas State before we get a bye week to begin our Mountain West Conference schedule, opening at Fresno State, then home against Nevada, at Hawaii, home against New Mexico and Air Force, and then 3 straight away games, Utah State, Colorado State, and BYU. I wish that I could change whether these were home or away, just because, you know, towards the end of the season we aren't going to have many home games to get visits at. But I wanted to leave this open week. There wasn't really a team there that seemed like it would be beneficial to have at the end of the season. And then we end with a home game against Wyoming, and that will be our senior day game. So we beat them, I think, 41-7 last year, so I'm looking for that to be a similar game. And then we end with conference championships, which hopefully this year we can make it into. So let me know what y'all think of this schedule. I am open to making some changes. I'm not going to advance into the season quite yet, so I'll give this video some time once it gets out to get some of your guys' feedback, and you let me know who you'd like to see me play. And the final thing we will do, we will check out some of these prospects. I'm not really sure if we'll have some high-ranked guys. We have a 5-star athlete out of Livingston, Montana that wants to come here. So what does he have to offer? A speed, B acceleration. He's not a quarterback. He has good spin move. It looks like he is probably a corner or a safety. So I think we'll just go ahead, add him to the board. This is one thing that I definitely do whenever I recruit. I'm really probably only going to recruit guys that are pretty much very interested in us, and guys who are in our pipelines or who I want to make pipelines. And looking at our team needs, we don't necessarily have needs. Maybe one at free safety because we're losing Jarvis Murray at the end of the season. Definitely want to highly recruit wide receivers. Definitely recruit some running backs, quarterbacks, offensive linemen always, defensive ends. I feel like linebackers are pretty solid as of right now. And then secondary and punter and kicker. So I'll look through all of those prospects and I will get back to you in just a second. Okay, so through the power of editing, I have gone through and kind of picked out, right now we have 31 people on our prospect board, a good mix of higher rated players, mid-rate, a lot of 65 to 70 overall players, a lot at positions we need and some at what we don't. I'm actually going to remove him because he has a playing time deal breaker that I just saw. And most of these players, they are C+. You see some of them might have a D on like their playing style or playing time. Some of that might go up as they get better. But everybody on my board has either a C or higher, pretty much, for especially for that top rating. They have a C+ or higher, or they were, you know, I was already in one of their schools that they wanted. If you guys want to see our pipeline states as they sit right now, we have Ohio and Florida as pipelines because that's just how the base game kind of did it whenever you just kind of simulated through your creating players on the team builder website. And then Pennsylvania, we are probably going to lose it next year as we'll have 4 players graduating and only 4 left on the rosters. But looking at our targets, trying to get California, Montana, Alaska, Idaho, some of those places to be our pipelines, and just all along the whole West Coast and Midwest if possible. But that is going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys enjoyed the off season. Let me know if you guys want to see any other teams for our schedule this season besides what we have. I'm open to maybe having another open game here and getting a game here at the end of the season where we can, you know, have a game for some of our recruits to come to if we get a visit. Oh, and the coach skill tree. So our head coach has 2 skills that are available. We could have an edge on our competition here at the beginning of the season for our recruiting, which I'm thinking that we are going to unlock. And then we can also get a couple of these that I haven't really updated for the game management, where we quarterbacks, no controller vibration. I feel like these are a little bit less important than the recruiting in this game, but you guys let me know what y'all would like to see there, and that'll wrap it up here. And I hope that I see you all next time as we begin to get this second season of the Montana State Grizzlies Team Builder Dynasty underway. And I'll see you all next time, and have a great day.